first week of the month, which means we need to look at the altcoin portfolio and need to rebalance it if it is not set up accordingly. Let's talk about the altcoin portfolio in this update. The altcoin markets are relatively volatile and Ethereum has been going up substantially, which means that there's a lot of trading involved if you are into altcoins. And that is what we are seeing in the markets, in the sense that we have been doing an extra update earlier in the week as we saw some momentum in a specific altcoin. However, most of the altcoins aren't really doing a lot, and that's where the rebalancing of the portfolio comes in. If you do enjoy the content that we provide on the altcoin portfolio and the strategy that we have, we can see that at least 60% of you are not subscribed to this YouTube channel but are still watching the content. Please make sure to subscribe. Beneath here it's just a simple click, and if you do that, I'll make sure to continue to provide the content that you need to go through the journey of the crypto cycle. So in that sense, if we talk about the altcoins, then basically everything comes down to the money flow cycle, which I keep on getting back to on the YouTube channel, which is basically Bitcoin moves first, ETH follows, and then it is going to be spread out over the entire ecosystem or over whatever altcoins there are. And in that sense, we have seen that Bitcoin has been going up to new all-time highs. We've seen the recent breakout. And from there, we saw the liquidity going into Ethereum in the sense that Ethereum has been getting a lot of ETF inflow, which I'll get to in a little bit. We also see Ethereum treasury companies coming in, where we also saw Bitcoin treasury companies. So it starts to spread out outside of Bitcoin and more into the remainder of the crypto markets, which in this case is Ethereum, where Ethereum has been skyrocketing in the previous month as it went up by more than 50% in one single month. And that is one of the strongest months that we've seen in the history of the asset, providing a lot of intel in which way we're likely going to go to with the markets for the upcoming period. And it doesn't mean that we need to continue to go up month after month, but at least the direction is very clear, which is uptrending from here. It's actually the highest monthly close since the peak run in 2021. And that means that there is a lot more to come for Ethereum as a whole, as I said. And given that we are having so much flow and interest into Ethereum, recently we have seen that the institutional flow, which is the Ethereum ETF, is even bigger than the one for Bitcoin. So Wall Street is buying more ETH than Bitcoin at this point. And given that the market cap of ETH is less than Bitcoin, it has a bigger impact in terms of the price. And that's what we have seen. So currently there's almost 10 billion in AUM in the markets or in Ethereum ETF, which I think is likely going to continue to grow over the time. So that is a great signal. And that's why our thesis of being into the Ethereum ecosystem and into the altcoin portfolio is still strong, despite the fact that we're not seeing much return as of yet. Now, before we continue, it is important to tackle a few questions which I've seen in the comments. We do have multiple portfolios. So I do have my personal portfolio, the Crypto Michael or Michael portfolio. I do have a normal name instead of the nickname, which is Michael. That's the personal portfolio which I take a lot of risk in, which is Optimism, TIA, Sai, Bitensor, Wormhole, Renzo, Rocket Pool, and Aevo. That's the one that I discuss on YouTube. Then, if you see me tweet about something like Combiner, which you can see next to me, that is the portfolio that we run with MN Capital. And MN Capital is our venture capital arm, where we invest into pre-TGE startups and we help those portfolio companies to grow. How do we do that? Well, we provide them a network with other VCs, other partners, marketing partners that we have, or we assist them with the go-to-market strategy or tokenomics, whatever is required that we can assist on, we are doing that for our portfolio companies. And if you would like to stay tuned on that, make sure to follow the MN Capital account. Then additionally, we have another portfolio which isn't ours. It is the one that we have with MN Fund. That is a company that's registered with the Dutch regulator. and we trade the clients their funds. And of course, we are not taking the direction that I'm taking with my personal portfolio. We are having a hybrid strategy, way more risk averse, that we trade there. So that's where we have the multiple portfolios. And my personal portfolio is just extremely risky, and isn't something that I would advise anybody to do so. So if you see any type of tweet where we say we invest into something, it's usually going to be MN Capital. So I've said this over and over again. If we go back to my personal portfolio, I think we are in for the final easy cycle. I don't know if it's going to be 6 months or if it's going to be 1.5 years, but I'm going to aim for the highest reward possible, and that's why I take the most risk. That's why my portfolio goes down by 70%. That's why I assume if you want to have a big return, you need to be accepting these downwards losses. The good part is getting back up as we went down way lower than this number. And the better part is we are likely just getting started and we have been trading it actively. So it's time to have a look at the portfolio and the charts of the coins that we have. The portfolio is up to 50 to 60K. It swings by like 10 to 20% day by day. And that is kind of what altcoin investing means. At some point we were breaking $60,000, but at the beginning of July, we were still swimming around 30K or even less. So there's a lot of volatility involved. And that could mean that within 1 month, we're going to be back up towards our break-even point and we can start making profits again. Now, it was a very active week with our portfolio in the sense that we have been selling Omni, as you can see in the spreadsheet that I have here. We have been selling Omni entirely, and we have been rebalancing that into the smaller coins that we have, through which the first thing that you will be seeing when we're looking at the portfolio is that almost everything is even. That means that the allocation that we have in Tau is kind of the same as the one that we have in Rocket Pool or in Renzo or in Wormhole, while initially the smaller coins would have had a smaller allocation and the larger caps would have had a larger allocation. But the reason that we have kind of the same level is due to Omni going absolutely ballistic, and through which that we said, okay, Omni is going great, so I would like to allocate those funds into the smaller coins to yield myself a higher return. And as a response, I've had some feedback on the fact that I wanted to sell Omni at $7.25, as you can see here. It's currently at $4.43, while the ones that we have been buying, like for instance Rocket Pool at $7.18 and Wormhole at 8.5 cents, are currently just down, well, maybe even up or down 1 to 2%, or for in the case of Wormhole around 10%. So we have made a good decision there to allocate towards the other assets, where we are also assuming that those assets are going to yield a higher return in the coming 1 to 2 months compared to what we expect from Omni. I think in the long term, Omni is still going to be well, but at this point, I think there's more to come from Renzo or Wormhole. It would be fun if any of these coins are going to be listed on Upbit, as then we are likely going to do another extra update with a spontaneous move of an altcoin going 2 to 3x. Now, let's look at the charts in the sense that we're currently having a slight correction on the markets. And that is not really strange in the sense that we are still accumulating on most of those coins. Optimism is just basically going sideways since April and not making any new highs. Every time when we get to the resistance, people sell, and every time when we get to the bottom, people accumulate. We could have been doing that as well, but that's not really our strategy as of yet. And I think that once we finalize the coming correction, stabilize there and get ourselves back to the resistance point, that's going to be the trigger where the altcoins are going to break through their resistance and start to shoot off. And that's usually going to give any sort of price action that we saw with Omni, but then with an actual fundamental move. And all those buildups are being made for all those coins. Like for instance, Optimism, it's still having the big bullish divergence on the 3-day, which we also have seen with Psy previously, as you can see here. Sai has been making the bullish divergence on the 3-day chart. And from there, it started to go up from 150 sets all the way towards 330. And now there's some slight profit taking place, which is quite normal because it went up by more than a 2x. So having this slight correction with our portfolio doesn't really make much sense. We still want to be fully allocated. And even things like Tau have been stuck in this range since May and has actually not been underperforming, in the sense that if we look at the levels where we were buying Tau, it's only down like 20% from that point. So there's still a lot of momentum and expectance to see Tau break through the resistance and start making new all-time highs, as Tau is likely one of those blue chips for this cycle. Now, one of our worst performing assets is TIA, which is up for debate whether we should be keeping this one in our portfolio. I think what I would like to see here is that we're going to stabilize around this low. TIA against Bitcoin is quite clearly still downtrending. And I would like to see that buyers are stepping in around the lows here, where we have a double bottom confirmation and start reversing, where it's kind of the same for the TIA against USDT chart, where you can see that we reject at the resistance. What is usually happening in that case is that we retest the low. The best case is we make a higher low, but I think we are going to retest the lows. If buyers are stepping in there, the next run in September is going to yield a likely 3 to 4x. So that's what I'm expecting there, which is the same for something like Wormhole, which, as you can see, has also been rejecting at the crucial resistance point here and is likely going to yield itself all the way back towards the lows, or potentially is going to make a higher low, which I would be very happy with, and I would include that into the next updates. But at this point, the only thing we could have done with the portfolio and the rebalancing of the portfolio is we could have sold Omni, which we did, and then we rotated it into other assets that are likely going to provide a bigger return than Omni has been provide or is going to provide in the coming periods. Where also at this point in time, given the fact that Ethereum has been doing so great, it is likely going to give liquidity to the rest of the ecosystem, that I want to be primarily allocated towards blue chips on Ethereum. And given the fact that Optimism is doing more than 70% of the layer 2 activity on Ethereum, I would like to be positioned mostly towards Optimism to yield myself a bigger return. So if we talk about the rebalancing, right now I'm not rebalancing my portfolio. We've done that earlier this week. We are correctly balanced at this point. Most likely we're going to go back to 40k, but ultimately I think that within the next 2 to 3 months, we are back to break even or even a higher return. The action on the track is heating up, and now it's your chance to be part of the action. OKX is the primary partner of the McLaren F1 team and is giving away official McLaren F1 team caps to new users, and there's more. You also have the chance to win one of the 3 VIP experiences in Zandvoort in full papaya style. And now this is what you need to do. You need to sign up to OKX using the link in the description beneath. You need to create an account. You need to make your first crypto trade, and then you will receive one of those caps at your home. And if you already have an account, if you refer a friend, you will also get one of those caps. These caps won't last forever, and the VIP experience won't last forever either. So you need to sign up before the 8th of August to be part of the entire challenge and to be part of this giveaway. It's a once in a lifetime, so make sure to join through the link in the description beneath, and perhaps we'll see each other in Zandvoort. In this update, I've not been rebalancing my portfolio, as we have been doing an active rebalance earlier this week with the update on Omni. Sometimes you don't need to update your portfolio or rebalance it. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you need to be very active during the month, or sometimes you need to be a little bit more passive. And in this week, we had to be active. We had to be, utilizing the opportunity that was given on the markets with Omni. And I've said this before, if I would have known that the markets were going so down in the first 6 months that I would have got an entry into Omni at $1 instead of 20 where I started, yes, of course, I would be waiting with my positioning. However, if I'm going to be having the mindset that I'm only going to sell Omni when it goes back to break-even points, it's not going to yield me any return at all. And that's where a lot of people are stuck with their trading, which is that you need to use the data that you're given at this point in time for a decision right now, and not by the decisions you've made back in the day, because it's not relevant anymore. The markets are likely going to give a correction. Right now, one is happening. I'm staying fully allocated into the markets. There's likely going to be a next leg upwards where the fun starts to kick in. So make sure to be positioned well. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I'll see you again on the next one. Ciao.